Hello, everyone. Welcome to Worldview, a program designed to bring up to speed with development the world over. My name is Emedion James, reaching you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at some of the headlines that we have for you today. Israel hits Iran nuclear and missile facilities, killing at least 20 senior Iranian commanders. Ukraine brings home bodies of 1,212 soldiers killed in war with Russia. Air India plane crash claims at least 290 lives as one passenger survives. Russia. This and many more stories are from Worldview today. Just stay tuned. Thanks for staying tuned. Let's begin today's story from the Middle East, where Israel launched large scale strikes against Iran today, saying it had targeted the nuclear facilities, ballistic missile factories, and military commanders at the start of a prolonged operation to prevent Iran from building an atomic weapon. Meanwhile, Iran has promised a harsh response, and Israel said it was working to intercept about 100 drones launched towards Israeli territory in retaliation. However, around 8 o'clock GMT, Israeli media said an order to citizens to remain near protected areas had been lifted, suggesting that most or all the drones had been neutralized. An Israeli security source also said that Israeli Mossad commandos had operated deep inside the Islamic Republic before the attack, and the Israeli spy agency and military had led a series of covert operations against Iran's strategic missile array. Israel further established an attack drone base near Tehran, the source added. The military also added that it had carried out a large scale strike against Iran's air defenses, destroying dozens of radars and surface to air missile launchers. In the meantime, Israel launching wide-scale strikes against Iran has prompted international airlines to halt flights to the region or to avoid affected airspace. Below are some of the airlines that have cancelled their flights to and from the region. Aegean Airlines, Greece Aegean Airlines, has cancelled all flights to and from Tel Aviv scheduled for Friday, June 13th. Latif Al-Batik said that all the Al-Batik flights to and from Tel Aviv until 23rd June 2025 have been cancelled. Russia's Aeroflot said that it had cancelled flights between Moscow and Tehran and made changes to other routes in the Middle East after Israel's strike on Iran. Air France said it had suspended its flight to and from Tel Aviv until further notice. KLM has cancelled all flights to Tel Aviv until at least July the 1st. Air India said that multiple flights were either being diverted or returning to their origin. Turkish Airlines subsidiary Airjet has cancelled flights to Iran, Iraq, and Jordan until Monday morning An agent source said Delta Airlines travel tour from or through Tel Aviv may be impacted between June 12 to June 30, the U.S. carrier said on its website. El Al Israel Airlines said that it had suspended flights to and from Israel. Etihad Airlines said that it had cancelled two flights between Abu Dhabi and Tel Aviv and delayed the departure of four others. Emirates UAE state-owned airlines said that it had cancelled flights to and from Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iran. Fly Dubai said that it had suspended flights to Amman, Beirut, Damascus, Iran, and Israel. Still in Israel, the Israeli Foreign Ministry has confirmed that six activists who were detained by Israel after their boat was intercepted on its way to try to break the Israeli naval blockade of Gaza have been deported. Earlier, Israeli human rights group Adela said they were being transferred to Ben Gurion Airport after more than 72 hours in Israeli custody following the unlawful interception of the Marine Freedom Flotilla in international waters. Adele, which provided legal advice to the activists, said two others who were on board remain in Israeli custody as they awaited deportation today. Among those who left on Thursday was Rima Hassan, a French Palestinian member of the European Parliament. In a post on X, the Israeli Foreign Ministry said six more passengers from the selfie yacht, including Rima Hassan, are on their way out of Israel. The post ended by saying, "Bye bye, and don't forget to take a selfie before you leave." The post also showed pictures of the activists getting onto and then sitting on a plane. Meanwhile, a post on Hassan's ex account said she had left prison and was inviting people to meet in Paris, Place de la République at 1 o'clock. The other five activists when deported are Mark van Rens from Netherlands, Suryap Ordu from Turkey, Yasamin Aga from Germany, Thiago Avila from Brazil, and Reva Verde from France, Abdel said. In a sad development, an Air Indian plane traveling from India to London crashed within moments of takeoff on Thursday, killing 241 passengers and crew and more people underground. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, which took off the city of Ahmedabad in the western India, plunged into a residential area, hitting a hospital complex and medical student hostel. One passenger survived the disaster, a British national who was sitting in a seat 11A and who later told family he had no idea how he walked away. Meanwhile, it is not yet clear what caused the crash, which Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi described as heartbreaking beyond words. Officials warned the death toll could rise in what was quickly described as one of the deadliest aviation disasters in India's history. It will be recalled that Air Indian flight AI 171 departed Sada Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport at 13:39 local time and was due to touch down at London's Gatwick Airport at 18:25 BST. There were 230 passengers on board, including 169 Indian nationals, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese citizens, 1 Canadian, and 12 crew members. Images from the scene shows debris scattered across a large garage zones with parts of the aircraft embedded in buildings. In the meantime, rescuers search for missing people and aircraft debris in shared buildings in Ahmedabad today after more than 240 people were killed in an Air Indian Boeing 787 crash. Local media reported that India may ground the airline's 787 fleet for safety checks. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, with 242 people on board, bound for Gagix Airport south of London, came down over a residential area of Ahmedabad moments after takeoff and erupted in a huge fireballs as it hit buildings below. Only one passenger survived, and local media reported that as many as 24 people on ground were also killed as the plane crashed into a medical college hotel during the lunch hour. However, newsmen could not immediately verify the number. Eyewitnesses had this to say about the crash. Rescue workers had completed combing the crash site and were now searching for missing people and bodies in the building, as well as what the aircraft described as parts that could help explain why the plane crashed soon after taking off. In a related development, airport authorities have said that an Air Indian flight from Phuket in Thailand to India's capital, New Delhi, received an onboard bomb threat today and made an emergency landing on the island. An airport of Thailand officials also said that all 156 passengers on flight AI 379 had been escorted from the plane in line with emergency plans. The aircraft took off from Phuket Airport bound for Indian capital at 9:30 a.m. today, but made a wide loop around the Andaman Sea and landed back on the southern Thai island, according to flight tracker Flightradar 24. The incident follows the crash of an Air Indian flight in Ahmedabad on Thursday, shortly after takeoff, in which more than 240 people were killed. AOT did not provide details on the bomb threat. Air India did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. In this next report, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has apologized to the Spanish people after an escalating corruption scandal brought down a senior Socialist Party colleague. Sanchez, who has led Spain since 2018, said there was no such thing as zero corruption and he sought to put a distance himself from the affairs, ruling out early elections. Opposition Conservative leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo said it was time for Sanchez to resign. Meanwhile, a downbeat Sanchez admitted he had been wrong to thwart Sanchez Cardin, the secretary of his Socialist Party, and spoke of his deep disappointment. Seddon has been asked to testify in court after a judge suggested he may have acted with former party officials in improperly awarding public contracts in exchange for kickbacks. He said on Thursday he was stepping down to defend himself in the Supreme Court on 23 June, maintaining he had never committed a crime nor has he been complicit one. Despite his 7 years in power, Sanchez has a shaky minority coalition secured after the Conservative Popular Party won 2023 elections but failed to form a government. In a separate development, US President Donald Trump today urged Iran to make a deal over its nuclear program, saying that there was time for the country to prevent further conflict with Israel. A post from Trump on Truth Social says there has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's administration sought to distance the United States from Israel's strikes on Iran, attacks that are likely to complicate Trump's drive for a nuclear deal with Tehran. Israel said it has struck Iranian nuclear targets to block Tehran from developing atomic weapons even as the Trump administration was preparing to hold a sixth round of talks on Sunday on Tehran's escalating uranium enrichment program. Also, Iranians reacted to Israeli strikes with anger and fear today, with some urging retaliations while others worried the conflict could spell more hardship for a nation worn down by crises. With Tehran and other cities shaken by a night of Israeli airstrikes, some said they plan to leave for neighboring Turkey, bracing for escalations after Israel signaled its operation would continue for as many days as it takes. In the meantime, a U.S. Supreme Court has allowed President Donald Trump to maintain his deployment of National Guard troops in Los Angeles amid protests over stepped up immigration enforcement, temporarily pausing a lower court ruling that blocked the mobilization. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decision does not mean that the court would ultimately agree with Trump, but it does leave command of guard with the president for now. Early on Thursday, San Francisco's based U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer found that Trump's deployment of the Guard was unlawful. Breyer's a 35-page ruling had ordered the National Guard to return to control of California. It was a short-lived victory for Newsom, as Breyer's orders was paused about 2.5 hours later. Asked for a comment, Newsom press office referred to the governor's statement after the initial ruling and noted that the appeal court put a temporary pause on the ruling but did not reverse it. Let's take a short breather now, but after the break, Russia's Putin calls for quick deployment of drone forces. Do stay tuned to us for these and many more stories right after the breather.
Broadening your horizon is what every living being not only genuinely desires, but heartily pursues and intentionally invests in. For in the gathering of men, only those whose minds are in tune with the dynamics of the past, present, and future innovations, inventions, politics, and governance are respected. We are Spectrum Television, and broadening your horizon is our obsession. Risk on your decoder now to connect Spectrum Television on the frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. That is frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250, polarization horizontal, and join our online community at spectrumtvlive.ng. For further inquiries, please call 0704 158 5642 or 0704 541 7707. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back. This is Worldview on Spectrum TV. Let's turn the spotlight now to the Ukraine and Russia war scene. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that drones played a major role in the conflict in Ukraine and called for the rapid development and deployment of separate drone forces within the military. Newsman reported that they are currently creating unmanned system troops as a separate branch of the military and they need to ensure their rapid and high quality deployment and development. Let's take a listen. Drones have played a leading role for both sides in more than 3 years old conflict pitting Moscow against Kiev. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has, since the outbreak of the war in February 2022, stressed the importance of developing a domestic drone development and production industry. Putin also told the second day of the gathering that Russia was well aware how Ukraine was dealing with the issue. In the meantime, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius arrived in Kiev on Thursday to discuss further weapons aid for Ukraine as effort to end a 3 year conflict with Russia faced headwinds and Moscow's force ramped up bombardment. Russia and Ukraine met for peace talks in Istanbul earlier this month in a renewed push to settle the conflict, which began with Russia's invasion in February 2022. Meanwhile, the two sides agreed over issues including territorial concessions and the prospect of Ukraine's future NATO membership. However, fighting has raged on with Russia drone attack killing 6 people in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said on the occasion of Russia Day that the United States supports Russia's aspiration for a brighter future, reaffirming a desire for constructive engagement in efforts to bring about peace in the war with Ukraine. The Russia Day holiday marks the country's 1990s declaration of sovereignty more than a year before the collapse of the Soviet Union. Rubio said in a statement on the State Department website that the United States remains committed to supporting the Russian people as they continue to build on their aspirations for a brighter future. A last story on Worldview today is that Kiev officials responsible for exchanging prisoners of war has said that Ukraine has brought home the bodies of 1,212 soldiers killed in the war with Russia in Moscow. We can also see that in Moscow, Kremlin aide Vladimir Medinsky said Ukraine, for his part, had returned 27 bodies of Russian soldiers. It released photos from the scenes showing personnel of the International Committee of the Red Cross at an undisclosed location, I beg your pardon, walking past several refrigerated trucks. Some trucks were marked with emblems on the shells, a Ukrainian organization involved in the retrieval and evacuation of military dead. Kiev and Moscow reached agreement at their most recent round of talks last week on a large scale exchange of corpses of war dead, though the deal was marred by wrangling over its implementation. On Sunday, Medinsky said Ukraine had postponed taking the first 1,212 bodies. Russian officials also said that refrigerated trucks loaded with the corpses waited for 5 days at the border before Ukraine accepted them. And with that, we wrap up our package for you on Worldview today. Do ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. I am Emedion James, reaching you live from Uyo, and you've been watching Worldview on Spectrum TV. Do enjoy the rest of your day, stay safe, and bye for now.
Spectrum TV, broadening
your horizon.